Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Ayin Vav Amar Aleph 76a of Maseches Kiddushin, and we are starting 6 lines down on the page. The second word on the line is V'yesh Omrim, and we're really in the middle of a discussion. The discussion began with a statement back on Ayin Hey Amar Aleph 75a, where the Gemara quoted a Brisa, where Rabbi Elazar said, Kusi lo yisa kusis. A kusi, a male kusi, may not marry a kusis, a female kusi. And the Gemara was trying to figure out why, and it offered a number of attempts, and then the Gemara finally said that there are 3 opinions with regards to the kusim, to their status, and or as with regards to why they are forbidden to marry, meaning why regular Jews cannot marry kusim. And we didn't yet return to explain what Rabbi Elazar meant. And that's because we didn't get to Rabbi Elazar's opinion yet. So the Gemara had said that there are 3 opinions regarding the kusim. Rabbi Shmuel held that they were Geirei Arayos. They converted under duress, and therefore their conversion was not valid, and they are not really Jewish, and that's why they're forbidden to marry. Rabbi Akiva said, no, they were Gerei Emes, they really converted, and the problem was that they misinterpreted certain halachos with regards to Yibum and Chalitza, and they held that married women don't need Chalitza, and really they do, and really they're prohibited for other people to marry them if they don't get chalitza, and so amongst the kusim they were marrying them, which is a lav, and according to Rabbi Akiva, chayve lavin, even regular prohibitions, prohibited relationships under a regular lav, even though it's not kares, still produces a mamzer, which means that there would be lots of mamzerim amongst the kusim, and so the problem with marrying a kusi is they're Jewish, but they might be good chance that they descend from mamzerim. That was Rabbi Akiva's opinion. And now we come to the third opinion. So again, we're 6 lines down, and the Gemara says, V'yesh omrim, and some say, Lefi she'ein b'kiyim b'dikduke mitzvos. The problem is that they are not well versed in the details of the mitzvos. Now, why that's a problem, we'll explain in a minute. So, man yesh omrim, who is this opinion? That's this third opinion. Rabbi Eliezer. This is Rabbi Eliezer. D'Tanya, like we learned in a Brisa. The Brisa says, Matzahs kusi mutares. The matzah of a kusi on Pesach is permitted to eat. We assume it's not chametz, even though it's made by kusim. V'adam yotze ba'yedei chavasu b'Pesach. And not only that, but you can fulfill your mitzvah of matzah on the first night of Pesach, even though there's a mitzvah d'oraisa, a Torah commandment to eat matzah the first night. And that matzah has to be baked lishma, it has to be baked l'shem mitzvah for the purpose of a mitzvah. We assume that kusim are aware of that and they did it properly when they made the matzah. That's the Tanakama's opinion. Rabbi Eliezer oser. Rabbi Eliezer forbids it. Lefi she'ein b'kiyim b'dikduke mitzvos. They are not well versed in the details of the mitzvos, and you cannot assume that they, first of all, didn't make it into chametz, and second of all, that they even if they was matzah, but they would have the right intent, we can't assume that. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Kol mitzvah shechaziku bakusim harbe medaktikim bayoser mi-Yisrael. He says actually any mitzvah that the kusim accept, they're actually more careful about it than regular Yisraelim, regular Jews. They take it very seriously. And it sounds like he would be saying that if they do the mitzvah matzah, then you can trust them on it. But the middle opinion, Rabbi Eliezer, said they're not careful about the details of mitzvahs. They don't know the details of mitzvahs. Okay, so fine, but why can't you marry them? There's other people also who aren't careful about the details of mitzvahs. Why can't you marry them? So elahacha ma'ye ein bekiyin. So what's the ein bekiyin here? What is that? How does that impact the ability to marry them? The problem is that they're not experts in the laws of Kiddushin and the laws of Gerushin, of divorce, of betrothal and divorce. And so, you can run into some serious problems because it could be that that they thought a woman was divorced, and she's really not. She's really married. So how could you marry such a kusi? Or she thought she was divorced. She got married. She had a child, and the child is a mamzer because really she was still married. So to the first husband. So there's a lot of mamzerim amongst them. Or with regards to Kiddushin, you can have that a man gave her Kiddushin. They thought it wasn't a valid Kiddushin, so she wasn't married to him. Then she went and married someone else, but really she's married to the first guy. And so again, we're producing mamzerim. So there's a concern with kusim that you can't marry them because they're not well versed in the laws of marriage and divorce, and therefore there's a good chance that they are producing mamzerim. Okay, what about Rabbi Eliezer? What about where we started, that they can't even marry each other? So that's because you have this problem again. One of them might be a valid Jew, not a mamzer, and one of them might be a mamzer, because any of them could be or can't be. We don't know. It depends, if they came from a mistaken divorce or mistaken marriage or one of these situations or not. So therefore they shouldn't marry each other because any of them could be a kosher marrying a mamzer. Okay. So that answers our question. That's the third opinion. They're not experts in the mitzvahs. That's why a regular Jew can't marry them. They could be a mamzer, and that's also why they can't marry each other, because one could be a mamzer and one might be a kosher. The Gemara now brings another explanation. It says, "V'Rav Nachman Amar," or Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua. The reason why you can't marry a kusim is because mamzer me'achoso u'mamzer me'eshes ach nis'arvu bahen. What happened was, there was a specific instance where a mamzer got mixed into them because somebody married his sister. One of the kusim married his sister, and one of the kusim, a mamzer, there was also a mamzer from eshes ach, married his brother's wife. I guess after the brother divorced her, but it wasn't a yibum case, so you can't marry your brother's wife even after divorce. And again, the child would be a mamzer. So they had a mamzer from somebody marrying his sister. They had a mamzer from someone marrying his brother's wife, and this arvaban, and they got mixed in. And now there's mamzerim mixed into the kusim, and that's why you can't marry them. The Gemara asks, "My kamashmon." So then, what's he teaching us? Yesh mamzer mechayve krisus? Is he just telling me, this seems obvious. If that's what happened, then it seems obvious. Is he telling me that there could be a mamzer from chayve krisus? That could be what he's teaching me. That if it's because there is an opinion that there's only a mamzer if it's chayve misa, if it's a relationship that the punishment is to be killed in beis din. There's an opinion only then would the child be a mamzer, but kares would not be a mamzer. So these are kares. So maybe, what's the point of telling me this? Maybe he's coming to tell me that a chiyuv of kares produces a mamzer. So, nisnichada. Then just say one case. Why does he have to say there were mamzers because somebody married his sister, and there were mamzers because somebody married his brother's wife? Just tell me one case. They're both chayve krisus. They both get kares. And you'd be telling me that the point, which is that a prohibited marriage that results in kares produces a mamzer, and there was one of those amongst the kusim, and now there's a mamzer amongst the kusim. So, the Gemara says, Maisa shaya kachaya. It said both because that's what actually happened. It's true, in order to teach me that there's a mamzer from chayve krisus, it could have just said one case, but it said both because that's actually what happened. It happened in both scenarios. It seems like the Gemara is saying that this only it happened one time. After that, everything was messed up. I wonder if we could learn that it's not just that happened one time. It's that they had an opinion, they had a shita, they held that it's okay or something like that. Not clear, but it seems to happen at least once, and that caused many mamzerim in the future. The Rava Amar, Rava says, Eved v'shivcha nis'arvu bahen. No, what happened was an Eved, a male slave, married into the Kusim, and also a Shivcha, a female slave, female maidservant. Okay, and therefore there were some of the Kusim are actually slaves. They're avadim and they're forbidden to marry. So the Gemara says Isura mishumai mishum shivcha. But one second, what would make the children forbidden to marry? If the father's a slave but the mother's a Jew, a Kusi, but she's a Jew, then the child is a regular Jew, not a slave. So the child's permitted to marry. So the only problem would be the other case, would be the shivcha. If the mother was a slave, a maidservant, and a Canaanite maidservant, and the father was a Kusi, then the child is a slave. That would be the problem. So it should have just said Nisni Chada. It should have just said that there was a Shivcha that married into them. Who cares that there was a Eved, also a male slave, married into them? That's not going to affect the offspring. So again, the Gemara says it's true, but this is what happened, and so the Gemara is just telling you the way that it happened. But right, what's significant for our purposes to explain why it's forbidden to marry a Kusi, that would be because the Shifcha that married in and then produced slaves as offspring. And again, this tells us not only why a regular Jew can't marry a Kusi, but I think this will explain another way to explain Rabbi Elazar, which is that Kusim can't marry each other either, because one might be descended from the slave and one might not be. Or in the previous case, one might be descended from the mamzerim and be a mamzer, and one might not be, and so they can't marry each other out of this concern. Okay. The Gemara continues with the new Mishnah. Hanose Isha, if a Kohen wants to marry a Kahanis, a Kohen wants to marry the daughter of a Kohen. So tzarech livdok achareh arba imahos. He has to check back 4 mothers, shehein shmona, which is really 8. Meaning what? He has to investigate the yichus, the lineage of this of his wife. And the way you do that is you check back 4 mothers worth, which really comes out to 8 because it's going to be on both the father and the mother, as the Mishnah will explain. So how does that work? How does it get to 8? So Ima, so you have this woman, you have to check the lineage of her mother, Ve'em Ima, and her mother's mother. So that's 2 already. Then you have Aim Avi Ima. So you have the mother of the father of her mother. So I guess to put it in simpler terms, he has to check, he's looking into this girl, he has to check the yichus of the mother, he has to check the yichus of the grandmother, he has to check the yichus of the grandfather's mother, Aim Avi Ima, Ve'ima, and her mother too. So the grandfather's mother's mother. So that's 4. That's on the mother's side. Ve'em avia. And then he also has to look into this girl's grandmother on her father's side. Ve'ima. And her mother, her grandfather's mother's mother. Ve'em avi aviha. And then on her grandfather's side, so on her father's side, the girl's father's mother, ve'ima, and her mother. So the father's mother and her mother. So that comes out to 8. 8 mothers grandmothers that you gotta look into. Just to go over them one more time, we have this girl, you have her mother, you have her mother's mother, you have her father's mother. Sorry, no, not yet her father's mother. You have her mother's father's mother, so her mother's grandmother on the father's side, the ima, and the mother of that woman too. And then you have on the father's side, you have the father's mother, and the father's grandmother, and on his mother's side, and the father's father's mother, so the father's other grandmother, and the mother of that one too. Okay, so what it basically is doing is going back like 2 generations of mothers in each side. 2 generations of mothers from her mother, 2 generations of mothers from her mother's father, 2 generations of mothers from her father, and 2 generations of mothers from her father's father. So, okay. That's if he's looking to marry a Kahanis, the daughter of a Kohen. But Levi of Yisraelis, if he's looking to marry the daughter of a Levi or Yisraelis, we add another aim. You have to go up one more level of each one. So another generation up. Okay. It sounds like we're, a little bit less confident when the girl descends from if she descends from a Kohen family, so they're probably looked back a little bit more. But if she descends from a Levi family or Yisrael family, so it needs a little bit more checking. Then we say, Ein botkin lo min hamizbeach u'lamala, v'lo min haduchon u'lamala, v'lo min hasanhedrin u'lamala. There are certain sort of checkpoints where at that point you wouldn't need to look further back at the yichus because you can assume that it was already checked, the lineage was checked. So min hamizbeach u'lamala. If you know a Kohen served in the Beis HaMikdash, performed the temple service, so then of the altar, the mizbeach, or any service really probably, you don't have to check back further, because if he was allowed to perform the service, you know that his lineage was checked out. The same with Mingad Duchon. If it's a Levi, and he was on the platform, if he's saying for the Karbanos, then it must be his lineage was checked out. You wouldn't have to check further if you find an ancestor who's a Levi. And you don't have to check Sanhedrin. If you know somebody was part of the high court, the Sanhedrin, so then you know he has good yichus, good lineage, you wouldn't have to check higher. Same is true if we know that the ancestor was a Shotrei Rabbin, was some kind of public officer, then must have been his yichus was checked out. The Gabbai Tzedakah, and as well as a Gabbai Tzedakah, if somebody was a Tzedakah collector, Masin L'Kahuna, their daughters can marry Kohanim, Ve'ein Tzarech Livdok Achrayim, you won't have to check after them, because again, these are positions the Gemara will discuss, but that we assume that their lineage has been checked out. Rabbi Yossi says, Af mishayachasum eid b'archei hayishana shal tzipori. So to someone who was signed as a witness in the courts of Yeshana and Tzipori, some say old courts, but Rashi says this certain place, if they only allowed witnesses who had yichus, who had good lineage, and so if somebody was signed as a witness in that court, you can assume they had good lineage. Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus Omer, Af mishtaya muchta be'astratio shel melech. So too, someone was written on as part of the army of the Jewish king. So they only allow people of good yichus, of good lineage, and therefore, if you know somebody was enlisted, so then they also could you could assume that they have a good lineage, and you wouldn't have to check further back. Okay, so the Mishnah said at the beginning that if a man wants to marry the daughter of a Kohen, the daughter of a Levi Yisrael, so if a Kohen wants to marry her, at least he has to look back. Regarding the mothers, the grandmothers, etc. Why do you only look into the mothers? Why don't you look into the fathers as well? The fathers could also make the child puzzle. The father's a mamzer, you're in the same boat. So why is it specifically the mothers that we have to look into? Says the Gemara, the Gemara says, "Because nashi deki minsu bahadi adadi ba'arayusu deminsu." If when the women quarrel with each other, when they argue, when they cast insults, it's about arayus. It's about inappropriate activity, but it's not regarding yichus. It's not regarding. They don't poke each other regarding each other's yichus, their lineage. So if there was a problem with lineage, there wouldn't be a kol. It wouldn't be known because it's not something that would get brought into the public discussion. But Gavri but men, when they quarrel, this is what they talk about. They say, "Oh, you are a mamzer," etc. So then, if there was really a concern about someone's yichus, islay kala, we would know about it because it would have come up in the men's discussions. So that's why we don't have to look into the men's yichus, because we assume if there was a problem, we would know about it. It's only the women's yichus that we have to look into. The Gemara asks, "V'ihi nami tivdok bei bididei." Why is only the husband, the man, the Kohen, looking into the woman, the wife, and her yichus? Why doesn't she have to look into his yichus? So she's also not allowed to marry a mamzer. So why does she not have to look into his yichus? Earlier when I said the Mishnah, I think I said it was a Kohen looking in to get married. It seems that actually it would be true. Even it doesn't matter who the man is. The man is a Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. It sounds like. That's why I said it, because Tosfos says it. Tosfos says it's talking about a Kohen who's looking to marry. And he says, don't say it's talking even about a Yisrael, because it's not as important. But Tosfos says actually that's talking about a Kohen. So let's assume like that. So when a Kohen is looking into getting married, so he has to look into the yichus, we said, of the mothers, but not of the fathers, because we assume if there was something wrong with the fathers, we would know about it. But why does if he's marrying a kahenes, the daughter of a Kohen, so she should have to look into him too? But it doesn't say that. So says the Gemara, Misayeh le'le Rav, this Mishnah would provide a support for Rav, to Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, because Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, below Huzur Ksheros Linaseh L'Psulim, that the Ksheros, the kosher daughters of Kohanim, are not prohibited from marrying psulim. They're allowed to marry, let's say, a psul kahuna, a disqualified Kohen, like a halal, or they could marry a convert. And so, the way Rashi explains it is, since the Torah did not prohibit the daughters of Kohanim from these types of marriages, so the Rabbanan didn't go out of their way to make extra requirements for them in terms of looking into mamzeros and stuff. In other words, a male Kohen, he has additional restrictions. So therefore, since he can't marry a halala or a divorcee, he has or a convert. So because he has special restrictions, so the Rabbanan then came and said, and we're going to be extra careful with you regarding even the restrictions that apply to everyone. Mamzeros, nobody can marry a mamzer. No regular kahal member. But we don't say that every kahal member has to look, 4 generations or 2 generations back to see if there was a mamzer there. It's specifically the Kohanim, and that's because since the Torah put extra prohibitions for them of whom they can marry, so we also have a higher regard in general for who they can marry, and we require them to look into things. It's rabbinic that they have to look in, check back, 2 generations, but the rabbis require that. But when it comes to a woman, the daughter of a Kohen, so since she doesn't have any special prohibitions, the Rabbanan didn't make a special requirement for her to look into the yichus, the lineage of the Kohen. It's true, she also can't marry a mamzer, but she doesn't have to look into that in the same way. Okay. The Gemara says, Rav Ada bar Ahava tani dali mahos shehein shtei mesrei. Rav Ada bar Ahava, our Mishnah says that you have to look back 4 mothers, which is really 8. But Rav Ada bar Ahava said 4 mothers, which is really 12. And b'masnisa tana we have a brisa that says dal yimos shehem sheishesrei, 4 imos, 4 mothers, which is 16. So are they arguing on our Mishnah? these opinions. So the Gemara says Bishlam Rav Ada bar Ava. So Rav Ada bar Ava makes sense. Mukim la Bilevia Ubas Yisrael. We could establish that he's talking about the case of marrying the daughter of a Levi or the daughter of Yisrael, which our Mishnah said that we add another one, another generation back. The Mishnah said if a man marries if a Kohen wants to marry the daughter of a Kohen, so he has to check back two mothers, going up each line. So her mother, the girl's mother and her mother's mother, the girl's father's mother and her mother, the girl's mother's father, and then two mothers up, the girl's father's father, two mothers up. So that ended up being 8. Two mothers always in each direction. But the Gemara said, but if it was the daughter of a Levi or Yisrael, the Mishnah said, Mosifin alein odachas. They added one more, which would mean 3 mothers in each direction. So that would add one more. So that would be 12 altogether. So that's so when Rav Ada bar Abba said that it's 4 mothers, but it's really equals 12. So that's what it could mean. It could mean 4 mothers and 3 up each way. But Ella Masnisa Nema Pliga. But this brisa that we quoted that's like at 16, that sounds like it's arguing on the Mishnah. It doesn't fit into any of the opinions of the Mishnah. One said, the first opinion said, not opinions, I guess, but cases. The first case was 4, which is 8, and then we said, if it's the daughter of a Levi or Yisrael, it's 4, which is 12. But how do we get 16? So the Gemara says, well, no, it doesn't have to be. My odachas zugachas. It could be agreed the Mishnah when it said you add one more for the daughter of Levi or Yisrael meant one more pair. Because each one was really a pair. Meaning that we went up 2 mothers each way. When the Mishnah said, for the first opinion, that you have to check back 4 mothers, each of the 4 was 2 mothers back. So that equaled 8. So when he comes in, so each one was really a pair. 4 mothers, 4 pairs of mothers was 8. So when the Mishnah then continues and says that for the daughter of a Levi or the daughter of a Yisrael, it's one more. It could be one more pair. And so instead of being 4, which is 8, it would be 4, which is 16, because you would go back, I guess, 2 pairs, so 4 mothers in each direction. Okay, we'll pause here and continue next time.